Tim Hudak is the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario and friend of the blog. How are you doing today, Tim?
Great to be back on, Stephen. Thanks for attending my remarks today. I hope you had a great time at the Manning Center's conference.
Yeah, I just want to ask about your remarks. You mentioned, of course, Rand and Hayek and Milton Friedman.
Yeah.
I just wonder, I've seen both sides of the equation with opposition and government. I wonder if in opposition, perhaps people, especially conservatives, are a bit more idealist about their economic and freedom-based principles. Where do you see that becomes more difficult should you form government?
Well, yeah, I talked a bit about today how I came to be a conservative.
Mm-hmm.
I think these are values that I was always raised with, the importance of family, living within your means, rewarding hard work. But when I was doing my economics degree at University of Western Ontario, I started to read Hayek and Friedman. I started to understand that I was conservative. And those are the principles that have always guided me in my time in public life, whether on the government side as a cabinet minister, in opposition, or as leader of the Ontario PC party. And I think when we stand on those principles, it makes the best kind of government policy that will actually help out families.
I guess where would you perceive or at least head off at the past where pragmatism or at least the realities of governance might restrict or impede some of those principles? Where would you?
Well, look, I mean, you always, in government, I've had the honor of serving in cabinet, you make the best decisions and the resources you have available to you. You know, I'm just somebody who believed when I was in cabinet and do now as leader of the official opposition that it's market-based principles that can help with our solutions. The bigger government does, the more it interferes in the economy,
Mm-hmm.
the more red tape it spools out, the more it holds back entrepreneurs and hurts private sector job creation. A great case in point is the current McGuinty government that has made Ontario a have-not province.
Okay, I suppose job one for a Hudak government would be deficit reduction and getting Ontario back on economic track. The federal government's also struggling with this now. What do you think is the best strategy to get debt to GDP back to reasonable levels? And what do you think, where have you seen sort of your federal cousins doing a good job, and where do you see perhaps something that you would do, or where do you see that there needs to be something to be amended in the strategy?
Well, there is a considerable difference in approach between the Harper government and the McGuinty government. Harper government, the recent budget, starting to take on challenges to getting spending under control, reducing the debt, and made a lot of progress before the recession hit. Dalton McGuinty seems, however, bent on continuing his runaway spending policies, no matter the state of the economy and no matter to what extent they demonstrated to have failed Ontario. I outlined a few things in my remarks today where I would take a different path than Dalton McGuinty, holding down the size and cost of government, greater transparency in what government does so taxpayers can see where their money is going and the outcomes. And very importantly, getting out of this corporate welfare business. I don't think government should be in the business of picking winners and losers in the marketplace. I believe in lowering the tax and regulatory burden to create the best environment for all businesses to succeed.
So your strategy then, I would conclude, would be you don't want to raise taxes, you want to cut spending in government, and you want to cut corporate welfare.
Yeah, Ontario has a spending problem, not a revenue problem. I mean, we have more money coming in the provincial treasury by far than we did when Dalton McGuinty first came into office. It's just that his spending has increased at about a rate of 65%, while the provincial economy has grown between 6 and 7%. So I'd target corporate welfare. Secondly, I think that governments need to decide what they do best and concentrate on that and get out of areas where government shouldn't be. And third, quite frankly, public sector collective agreements need to reflect the ability of the private sector to pay. And we're not seeing that in Dalton McGuinty's Ontario.
Okay, and finally, do you think that I remember Paul Martin negotiated a fix for a generation on health care and transfer payments to the provinces. Do you think that 2011 is too early to have that debate on where we want to reconfigure at least Ontario's position with respect to healthcare transfer payments?
Well, I think it's important that we're always engaged in a debate in terms of the role of the federal government versus the role of the provincial government. The province has to deliver some of the fastest growing programs like healthcare, and certainly needs to, one, have the revenue to support growing demand on healthcare, but also province needs to take its own destiny into its own hands by ensuring that our public healthcare system gets dollars into frontline services, motivates quality improvements in the system, and treats the patient as the lead point of the system rather than simply protecting the bureaucracy.
And I guess to complete the loop, with respect to transparency and health delivery in this province, what we learned about e-health recently, there's another. You alluded it in your speech. I wonder if you could just outline your concern about that.
Well, the e-health boondoggle has become symbolic of the problems of the McGuinty government. I mean, it's $1 billion that Ontario families gave the province in trust for healthcare that basically accomplished nothing for patients, but made a lot of liberal-friendly consultants fat and rich off of these untendered contracts. I mean, that just shows what happens when you don't keep your eye on the ball, when you allow bureaucracies to flourish without measurable results, reporting dates, or responses to the patients in the system. You get that kind of bloated bureaucracy, which is always just a few steps away from a big scandal.
Great. Okay, thanks a lot, Tim.
Stephen, always a pleasure. Thank you.